How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Daled, Daf 54 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, Daf Nun Daled, what should I tell you about Daf Nun Daled? It's a little awkward. What do you want me to tell you? It's a little awkward. Let's go weiter. So, we are on Daf Nun Gimel with Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. You ready? Let's do it. Onus. What? No. Yes. Onus to masnis nechidami. No. Fact the Gemara. How do you have the case of onus, right? Our Mishnah talked about that Yibum works even if it is some like onus, like it just somehow happened, right? It wasn't intentional in any way. So how exactly is this case of onus? If you're going to say, well, he was coerced by Gentiles, and he only did Yibum, right? Shimon did Yibum with Sarah because he was coerced by Gentiles to do Yibum. Rava says in onus le'erva v'shein kishu ela ladas, that when it comes to arayos, there's no concept of onus, of coercion, because a fellow can only get an erection if he has intention, if he's a party. And therefore, memele, even if this fellow was coerced, even if Shimon was coerced, the fact that he was able to have intercourse with Sarah means that it ultimately, in a certain respect, it was not coerced, and of course it would count as yibum, right? He had intention. V'amar Yehuda Yoshen. Wait, where am I? Ela b'Yoshen. So maybe Shimon was sleeping. Maybe Shimon did Yibum with Sarah in his sleep. V'amar Yehuda Yoshen lokon b'yivimto. But Yehuda says that you can't do Yibum when you're sleeping. Ela b'niska. Friends, you hear this? Maybe the situation of onus is where, you ready for this case? Where he was preparing to sleep with his wife, so therefore, and he got an erection, ready to sleep with his wife, falls off the roof, Pasha lands on his sister-in-law, Yibum. What do you want me to tell you? I feel like I have a lot of questions about this. Koponim. That's what we're talking about. So maybe Kilu, he had an erection because he was planning to sleep with his wife, but falls off the roof, results in Yibum, did not plan on falling off the roof. That's the case of onus. Well, that doesn't work either. Rabba says, Nofum nagav viniska. A fellow in this situation falls off the roof and, ends up doing Yibum with his sister-in-law. So you chayiv to pay 4 things that we're going to learn about in Bavei Kama, right? Nezek, Ripui, Tsar, and Shevis. He doesn't have to pay Boshes, as we're going to see later on. And it doesn't work in the context of Yibum. So we tried to think that maybe it was the situation where he falls off the roof, but says Rabbah, falling off the roof and doing Yibum in that manner doesn't actually work. Okay, so maybe what onus is where Shimon was intending to sleep with his wife. So he got an erection intending to sleep with his wife, and then his sister-in-law forces him to do Yibum with her. So that's onus. And he did Yibum with her. He had beer with her. Now, what can be a situation of both of them being anusim, right? In that case, he was onus. She was forcing him. What's the situation where both he and she were anusim? Okay, so he got his erection in preparation for sleeping with his wife. And then came the idolaters and chapped both Shimon and his sister-in-law Arain and stuck them together, right? So the erection was from his wife, but the idol worshippers took Shimon and Sarah, stuck them together, and that's how Yibum happened. And we're saying it taka counts, right? Bein ba'onus, bein b'ratzon, it taka counts. Alright? Mazel tov. Let's go weiter. How do we know that Yibum works in all of these circumstances? Whether it's shogeg, mezid, onus, ratzon. This on Rabbanim, the rabbis taught. Yivam yava yalel mitzvah. So when the pasuk says Yivam yava yalel, that Shimon will do Yibum with Sarah, mitzvah. That's the ideal way, right? If we have to choose between Yibum and Chalitza, priority goes to Yibum. It's a mitzvah. Alternatively, what does it mean that Shimon will do Yibum with Sarah? Whether, we said Shogeg yesterday, right, you got confused who you were sleeping with, or bemazed for the wrong reasons, ba'onis, coercion, ben biratzon, or intentional. But one second, didn't we learn out from Yivam Yova Elel to say that it's a mitzvah rather than shogeg mezid onis ratzon? So the mitzvah mivim liyach b'itzo yishnafke. So the Gemara says, okay, so the mitzvah thing, the priority, the preference going to Yibum, that's learned out from im lo yachbo tzoish. That in the context of Chalitza, it says if Shimon is not interested in continuing his brother Reuven's name, so then you can do Chalitza. Hachofetz yabi. But ideally, if Shimon is interested in doing Yibum, so then do that. That would be the preference. So we learn it out from there that it's a mitzvah to do Yibum over Chalitza v'chiyasa. Therefore, the pasuk of Yivam Yova Yoleo is available to teach us that whether it's Mezid, Shogeg Mezid Onis Ratzon, Tanya Idach, we have another brayso that says Yivam Yova Yoleo Kedarka, that Shimon will have Bia with Sarah Kedarka in the natural manner of Bia, Ulikacha Shalo Kedarka. And when it says Ulikacha, that could be even in the unnatural way of Bia. V'yabeim, the pasuk could have said v'yabeim bia gomeres ba, to say that right ve'en kesef v'shtar gomen ba, that by Yibum it's just bia, there's no kesef and shtar, at least midoraisa. Of course we learned about Maimer. V'yibma bal korcha, and he does Yibum with her even if it's against her will. Amar Mari said earlier, so we had said earlier that from the pasuk of Yivam Yova Yaleh we learn out whether it's shogeg, mezid, onis, ratzon, v'afikte lichedarke. But I thought that we learned out from that pasuk that Yivam Yova Yaleh kedarke in the natural way of bia. No, kedarke is learned out from to establish a name for his brother Reuven. In a manner that will result in a child, which is natural bia as opposed to unnatural anal bia. And therefore, the pasuk of Yivam Yova Yaleh is available for ben ba'onis ben b'shogeg ben b'mezid ben ba'onis ben b'ratzon gufa. Says the Gemara we said earlier, review the yashin lo kana b'yivimto. So review this says that if Shimon is sleeping, you can't do Yibum when you're sleeping, Shimon. That the pasuk says that Shimon has to have bia with Sarah at the mechaben law, the shame bia. You have to have intention to have bia. You can't just be sleeping, Shimon. But we have a brayso that says no, he can be sleeping, whether he's awake, whether he's asleep. It's Yibum. No, whether she's awake or she's sleeping. Vatani ben er hu ben yoshin hu ben er he ben yishena he. But we have a brayso that says whether he's awake, whether he's asleep, whether she's awake, whether she's asleep. Now that's just talking about where he's like dozing off a shtickle. What's considered dozing off a shtickle? Amr of Ashi, nim velo nim, tir velo tir. He's dozing off a shtickle. He's awake a shtickle. They call out to him and he answers, but he won't exactly know how to give a proper svarah. But if you remind him of Epis, he'll remember. So he's a shtickle. I was in a groove earlier with somebody. He was, trying to chaparine a shtickle learning before he went to sleep. He fell asleep in the middle. He woke up. He couldn't deal with difficult things at the time. but on some level he chapped, you know what I mean? Gufa, we said earlier, Rabba says Rabba Nofum Nagag Viniska. If Shimon falls off the roof and Pashit does Yibum with Sari in that manner, Chayv Barbo Dvarim is Chayv for 4 things, Uviyivim to Lokana, but by Yibum it does not work. I'm Chayv in 4 things. Okay, let's go weiter. Lokana Benezek, V'tzar, B'sheves, V'ripoy. What are the 4 things he'll be Chayv for? For damages, for pain that was endured, for if she's unable to work. The pay for what she can, right, the wages that she's unable to earn now, beripui, and any hospital bills of aboshes lo mechayev, but he's not responsible to pay for any embarrassment to Amar, because we said in chayev al aboshes achiskavin, you have to have intention to do harm in order to do damage, in order to be liable for embarrassment. Whereas over here he fell off the roof, that was not his intention. Amar Ravis is Rabban iskavin latiach bakoto v'tiach bivim to lokono. If you have a fellow whose intention was to rub himself against the wall, and that's what he wanted to do. And but somehow he ended up rubbing himself against his sister-in-law, and Yibum may or may not have happened, so it doesn't work. But if he intends to sort of rub himself against an animal, I guess to have intercourse with an animal, but he has intercourse with his sister-in-law, so then Yibum would technically work, since he was intending to have some form of bia, even if it was a problematic form. Alright? So now we continue in the Mishnah Echad and Ma'areh. So the Mishnah had said that Yibum even works when it comes to Ma'areh, when it comes to Ha'ara, when it comes to, even if there wasn't sufficient penetration between Shimon and Sar, nonetheless, it works in terms of Yibum. It says, Ula, how do we know of this concept of Ha'aroya in the Torah? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Visha shayishka v'sisha dava, that if a fellow sleeps with a nida, Vigila eservasa, and he reveals her nakedness, es mekore ha'ara, he was ma'ire her source? Whatever, it says ha'ara, that's like ma'ire, you get it? Good. So like by nida it says ha'ara, so we see that the concept of ha'aroya from the Torah, from nida. That's how we know that there's this concept of ha'aroya in the Torah. Ashkach nida sharayis minayin givaldik. So we know about nida. How do I know that ha'aroya applies to other arayis as well? That if you do, if you're ma'are by one of your sister or something like that, it's a big problem. So v'chitei menelef minida. If you're going to say, well, let's just learn that out from nida. So just like nida, there's ha'aroya. So also by all the arayis, there's a ha'aroya. But 1 second, you can't just simply learn out from nida, no questions asked. Nida is particularly stringent in that when it comes to a nida, if you have a fellow who sleeps with a nida, he now becomes tamei to the same extent that she does, pretty much. Right? He becomes an avatomeh as well. I think the only nafkamina is that he's not matami midras, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Ela asem eishasoch. Rather, let's learn it out from eishasoch. Okay, fine. The Chsev, as the pasuk says, "V'isha shayikach es isha es eishasoch." The fellow marries the wife of his brother. Nidahi, she's a nida. V'eishasoch v'olam nida. What do you mean? How do you know she's a nida? What, is your brother's wife just always a nida? Ela kinida. No, she's like a nida. Anida beha'aroya. That just like by a nida there's this concept of ha'aroya, so also by eishes och we have the concept of ha'aroya. So we see that by eishes och there's ha'aroya, so let's extend from there that we could say ha'aroya also by in other contexts as well. Maleshes och can be other l'rabbis, di by mikadesh vazu ki alpha. But 1 second, you could say that eishes och is unique in that by eishes och, right, your brother's wife, he can keep on creating more of it, right? He can keep on getting married 1,000 times. He can get married to more and more women, and then sort of the isser multiplies, right? Which is not the case by, let's say, your sister. What about, right, the arayis of your sister? You can't, you can't make more sisters. Your mother, you only have one mother. You can't have more mothers, right? So maybe we'll say that eishes och is different to the extent that the erva can sort of keep on multiplying. You can get married more and more, which is not the case by, let's say, like your mother. You only have one mother. So let's learn it out from your father's sister or your mother's sister. The pasuk says, that the nakedness of the sister of your mother or of your father you shall not reveal. That you have, done ha'ara to their flesh, I guess, family. So we see ha'araya in the context of your father's sister and your mother's sister. So let's extend it from there. One second. The sister of your father and the sister of your mother is unique in that it is an isser that comes on its own, right? You didn't do anything, right? You were born and like your father had a sister, your mother had a sister. What do you want me to tell you? So, right, that as opposed to like, let's say something like, your brother's wife, which was through Kiddushin. They did something to do that. So, Mechada lo aser. So the Gemara says, look, we brought 3 contenders, 3 options. Nida, Eishes Och, Achos of Va'im. None of them were successful. So let's at least try to say, Teisi mitarte. Let's at least try to learn it out from 2 of them, right? If we can't learn it out from one on its own, maybe if we pair one up with the other and say, well, even though on their own we can't learn out from them, but as a group, it's strong enough to learn out from. Well, mehai teisi. Which 2 are we going to put together and try to extrapolate from and extend from? Teisi me'eishes och v'achos of va'im. If you're going to say eishes och together with achos of v'achos eim, malahanoch shekein asur mishum sher. When it comes to your brother's wife as well as your father or mother's sister, those are relatives, right? Now, fine. So maybe I could say that by ha'aroya, it's shaykh to relatives. But what about something like Eishes Ish, where she's not married to you? That's an erva. You can't marry marry or sleep with a married woman, but she's not related to you. So how would I know that ha'aroya is shaykh dar inoichet? Elatesi minida v'achos of v'achosem. So maybe let's use Nida and the sister of your father and the sister of your mother. But those are unique in that those are arrives that come on their own, right? Nida, she just kind of becomes a Nida. And your, sister, like, you didn't do anything to do that, like, or your father's sister, your mother's sister, like, that was just kind of your situation. Like, your father had a sister, your mother had a sister. What do you want me to tell you? You didn't do anything. So Ella, Teisi Minida, so therefore you can't learn out from those 2, because they come on their own, as opposed to something like Eishes Och, where like it comes through Kiddushin. So Ella, Teisi Mi Nida ve'Eishes Och. So let's learn it out from Nida and Eishes Och. Nida and your brother's wife, because what are you going to ask? Maskefla Ravacha, Breder Vika, or Ravacha Breder Vika says, well, Malanida ve'Eishes Och, shekin ein loim heter b'chayi osron. Right? What's unique about Anida and your brother's wife is that there is no permission to them. There is no, I don't know what's the word. There is no permission. I feel like that's not right. There is no solution, remedy maybe. There's no remedy as long as the Isser lives. What does that mean? Anida, for example. As long as she's a Nida, there's really nothing that you can do. I mean, as long as she's still seeing Dam, she's going to be, there's absolutely nothing that you can do to stop that Isser, right? Your brother's wife, even if they get divorced, you still can't marry her. As long as your brother's alive, you still can't marry her. So like, as long as this woman's a Nida, there's nothing you can do to be able to make her not be an Erva. As long as your brother's alive, there's nothing that you can do to be able to marry his wife, even if they get divorced. As opposed to Tomar Be'eshes Ish Shekin Yesh Le'eter B'chayoso. How can you compare that, right, to, for example, a married woman? What's the problem? The problem is that she's married. So get divorced, and then she's permitted. Right? So meaning in the lifetime of what makes her usher, i.e. her husband, get divorced, and now you can marry her. So therefore that makes those two unique, right? Nida and Eshesach. So Rav Midifti says to Ravina, Otu Nida ve'Eshesach b'chai osunu de'in loim heter aval acher mikan ish loim heter. 1 second. Did you just say that when it comes to Anida, when it comes to Eshesach, only as long as the Isser is around, but after the Isser, they're permitted? So what? So you're telling me that, so Anida is an erva because she's seeing Dam. But if she stops seeing Dam, then she's permitted? And your brother's wife, she's also to you because of your brother. You're saying that if your brother dies, now your brother's wife is permitted to you. Nida, b'yomi tayi milsa, eshesach b'banim tayi rachmanin. There's more to the story. When it comes to Nida, even if, right, Mida or Raise, if a woman sees Dam, depending on which days of the cycle it is, but Mida or Raise, a woman sees Dam, so then she's a Nida for 7 days. Even if she only saw Dam on day 1 and didn't see Dam anymore for the rest of the 7 days, she's still a Nida for 7 days. So therefore we see, even if the Isser stops, even if the Dam stops, she's still also for 7 days. There's nothing to do with the Dam specifically. And even when it comes to your brother's wife, even if your brother dies, if they had kids, then she remains also to you. So therefore it's not as simple as, that there's no permission, there's no remedy while the Isser exists, because actually even once the Isser stops, they're still Isser depending on, depending on the context. So Ela Prichachi rather ask in the following way, Malanida ve'Eshesach, shekein ein osan matiron, that Nida and Eshesach are actually unique in that what makes them also does not make them mutter, right? Meaning, even if a Nida stops seeing Dam, it doesn't make her mutter. It depends what day of the cycle it is. When it comes to the wife of your brother dying doesn't necessarily make her mutter. It depends if they had kids or not. So Tomer be'Eshes Isha Osher Matira, you could say that by Eshes Ish, where all you have to do is they get divorced and now she's permitted, right? Simply get rid of the thing that's Osir, i.e. their marriage, and now she's permitted. Elam Rabbiona. Okay, so now getting back to the question, so then how do we know this concept of ha'aroya by arayus in general? So Elam Rabbiona says Rabbiona v'tem Rav Huna brother of Yeshua. Omer Cross says the pasuk he called Asher Yaisim Kol Atoevos Ha'ele, that anybody who does any of the arayus that are listed, where is this in Parshas Kedoshim? No, Achremos. So ki Kol Asher Yaisim Kol Atoevos Ha'ele, anybody who does any of these arayus, v'nichrasu anafashos ha'osos, so then there will be kares hukshu kol arayus kulon lenida. All of them are compared to nida, meaning, right, we said anybody does any of the arayus, and one of the arayus is nida. So we're lumping all the arayus together, including nida. So manida ba'araya, afkol ba'araya, and just like nida, ha'araya is shaykh, so also by all of the arayas, ha'araya is going to be shaykh. So now that we've learned out ha'araya from nida, so then we earlier had said that we also learn ha'araya by eshesach, and we also learn ha'araya by achos of em, right? Achos of and achos em. So why do we learn? So what do we do with those things right? What do we do with those ha'aros? If we learn out ha'aroya from the comparison to nida, what about the extras? So ve'ela nida d'chsiv gabi eshesach lomalis. And why does it say nida in the context of your brother's wife if we don't need it to teach us ha'aroya? So it's like Rav Huna dam Rav Huna remez li Yevamos min haTorah minayin. Where do we have an allusion to Yibum in the Torah? What does that mean? Yevamos min haTorah minayin. What do you mean? Where do you have an allusion? Haksiv Yevamos yovei eleh. The pasuk says beferish Yibum. Elarem li Yevamos asur b'chai baila minayin. How do I know? Where's an allusion in the Torah? How do I know that your brother's wife, as long as he's alive, even if they get divorced, she is asura to you, right? Shimon is asura to Sarah as long as Reuven is alive, even if they get divorced. So minayin, how do I know this? Hi Svari. Well, this is logical. So, well, from the fact that the Torah says that after Reuven dies, then if they don't have children, Shimon is permitted to Sarah, implying that as long as they're alive, even if they're divorced, they're going to, right? Shimon and Sarah are asura to one another. But then he says, mitzvah, but maybe I'll say 1 second. Maybe after Reuven dies, so then there's a mitzvah of Yibum, but let's say Reuven and Sarah, if they got divorced, so then even if Reuven is still alive, then Shimon would be allowed, if he wants to marry Sarah. Okay, there's no mitzvah of Yibum, right? If Reuven dies, there's no kids, and then there's a mitzvah that Shimon should marry Sarah. But let's say they get divorced, maybe if he wants, he can marry Sarah. Inami, or alternatively, Lachum says Baila in B'chai Baila lo, or maybe I'll say, sure, after Reuven dies, then there's a mitzvah saseh of Yevamos Yavai aleh. But during Reuven's life, as long, right, even if they get divorced, but during Reuven's life, so then Shimon is not allowed to be with Sarah. However, V'lav haba mechlal essay, but we only know that as long as Reuven's alive, Shimon is not allowed to marry Sarah from the implication, right, from the fact that there's a mitzvah of Yibum after Reuven dies, implying that as long as Reuven's alive, Shimon cannot be with Sarah. But we know that a negative, right, a commandment, right? So Shimon and Sarah can not be together, which only comes from the implication of a positive commandment of Yevamos Yavai aleh. That would be treated as an aseh. If he violates it, it's like he's violating an aseh. But I would say that he would not be chayiv kares. So for that reason, the pasuk says actually that if a fellow takes the wife of his brother, so she is a nida. Nida, he is the wife of his brother, always a nida, elakin nida. Rather, she's like a nida. Manida afalpi sheish laheter lacher mikan b'shas iser bekaris. That just like a nida, even though sure in the future she won't be a nida anymore and she'll be permitted, but when she is a nida, there's a chiyuv karis. Saf eishes och nami. So also the wife of your brother as well, afalpi sheish laheter lacher mikan. Even though yes, she could become permitted. Right, Shimon and Sarah could become permitted to one another after Reuven dies if they don't have children. But b'chai by the b'karis, nonetheless, as long as Reuven is alive, there is a chiyuv karis between them. So now, for the Gemara, el ha'aroya dichsiva gabi achos ov ve'achos eim lomali. Or so how come it says ha'aroya by the sister of your father and the sister of your mother? Right, since we learned haroya from nida, so why do I need it also by the sister of your father and the sister of your mother? It's like Ravina asks Rava, what happens if you do haroya by right one male to another male? So bezocher mishkevei isha ksiva. What do you mean by one male and with another male? It says mishkevei isha, that if they sleep with one another like one would sleep with a woman. And we know that ha'aroya is shaykh to a woman, so memela ha'aroya is shaykh to a relationship between a man and a man as well. Okay, well then what about somebody who's mayre with an animal? Now if the ha'aroya that it says by the sister of your father and the sister of your mother is not necessary, because we learn it out from Rabbi Yonah that everything is right, that all the arayos are compared to nida. So then why does it say ha'aroya by your father's sister and your mother's sister? Taneu inyan la'aroya de behemos. So let's say it's to teach that it's extra to teach that even ha'aroya by an animal is going to be a problem. Michdei, let's see. Fellow sleeps with an animal, so then you're chayiv misa. I think it's skila? I don't remember, but you're chayiv misa in Bezdin. We kill you. So my time eksiv laharoya dido gabi chayiv kreisus. So if sleeping with an animal is a chiyuv misas Bezdin, so then why are we learning about the ha'aroya with an animal? Why are we learning it out from your father's sister or your mother's sister, which is a chiyuv karis, not a chiyuv misas Bezdin? Lichtov gabi misas Bezdin. Why not have the ha'aroya of an animal in another context of misas bezdin, and then we can learn out two things that are both misas bezdin. Why one misas bezdin and one chiyuv karis? So, and for the Gemara, well, since that pasuk of your father's sister and your mother's sister is entirely extra and is only there to learn things out from, so we use it as an opportunity to learn this out as well, even though yes, your father's sister and your mother's sister would be kares, whereas sleeping with an animal is a chiyuv misas bezin. My drasha, what is this, what's this expoundation? Exposition, expose, I don't know, let's go weiter. What's the thing that we learn out from this pasuk? The Tanya is we learn in a brayse. Ervas achos avicha lo segale. So the pasuk in Achremo says, do not reveal the erva of the sister of your father. Beimina av, beimina aim. And that means your father's sister, whether they share a mother, whether they share a father. Ata omer beimina av, beimina aim. Wait, is that really true? That it's your father's sister, whether they share a father, whether they share a mother? Hoenu ella, mina av. Maybe it's just your father's, I don't know if I said father's mother, but father's sister, right? Maybe it's only your father's sister, who they share a father, but not necessarily a mother. V'lo mina aim. V'dinu. So we say, well, chayiv kan v'chayiv ba'achoso. Well, it says that you're chayiv for sleeping with your father's sister, as well as with your own sister. Ma'achoso be'mina bina aim. Just like when it comes to sleeping with your sister, it's whether it's your sister with your, right, who you share a father with, or whether it's your sister you share a mother with. So afkan b'min av b'min aim. So here also, by your father's sister, it's your father's sister whether they share a father or whether they share a mother. But one second, maybe I could say chayiv kan v'chayiv b'dodaso. We have guests. It says over here that you are chayiv. And it also says that you're chayiv for arayus by your father's brother's wife. Madudaso, just like your father's brother's wife, mina av v'lo mina aim. You're talking about your father's brother, who they share a father, but do not share a mother. Afkan be mina av v'lo mina aim. So let's say that just like by your father's brother's wife, it's talking about your father's brother, who they share a father but not a mother. So maybe I'll say that your father's sister is also your father's sister, who they share a father but not a mother. So near lemidome. Well, let's see. What is your father's sister more similar to? Is it more similar to your sister, or is it more similar to your father's sister's wife? So let's say, let's learn out an isra that comes on its own, right? Your father has a sister. You have a sister. Do not prove from your father's brother's wife. She'ein isra abam eila. It doesn't just kind of come on its own. It's your father's brother married her. Or we could say, done in krovia av mikrovia av val tochiach achos shukrovia atzmo. But I can also argue it makes sense to learn out your father's sister from your father's brother's wife, because your father's sister and your father's brother's wife are both sort of connected to your father, as opposed to your sister, which is connected to you. So that's why we have the additional pasuk in Kedoshim, where it says that the erva of the sister of your father do not reveal, and that is entirely extra, and is to teach us that it's beimina of beimina aim, that it's your father's sister, whether they share a father, whether they share a mother. When it says the erva of the sister of your mother do not reveal, beimina of beimina aim, it's whether it's your mother's sister from the father, mother's sister from your mother, mother's sister from who they share a father, or mother's sister who they share a mother. Lamali lemichtava ba'achos of lamali lemichtava ba'achos aim. Why do we have to list, right? Why do we have to mention both your father's sister as well as your mother's sister? So Rabbahu says about tzricha, you need them both. Because if the pasuk would only say by your father's sister, sheken yesh lachayis, because that's sort of like your inheritance, your lineage, right? As Rashi says that your father's family is what's considered family, and therefore your father's sister is part of your father's family, as opposed to your mother's sister isn't from that same line. But I might think that your mother's sister is not, you wouldn't be chayiv for, because of Rachmana b'achos eim sheken vadoyis. And if you would only mention your mother's sister, I might think, well, because we know for sure that your mother is your mother. When you were born, there were people around. We know that you came from your mother, but nobody was around when she conceived, and therefore can't say for sure that your father, who you think your father, is actually your father, and therefore what? And therefore, if we only had your mother's sister, I might think, okay, fine, your mother's sister is an heir, but maybe not your father's sister, because at the end of the day, you don't know for sure that it's your father. What do you want me to tell you? Fine. And now it says the Gemara Vidodo the Pshitale Litane Timina Ov Velomina Minole. Now we assumed earlier, right, a few lines ago, that when it says your father's brother's wife, so that's specifically your father's brother who they share a father but not share a mother. So Minole, how do we know this? So Amarava Asi Dodo Dodo. So well, it says Dodo here, and it says Dodo in another context. Ksivocha Ervas Dodo Gila. It says by Arayos that if you sleep with your father's brother's wife, so then you are revealing the erva of your uncle. And it says, Ododo vendodo yigalenu. If you have a fellow who sells himself as an eved, right? If a yid who sells himself as an eved, I believe to a non-Jew. Yeah, so it says that his relatives need to try and bring him back and redeem him. So so when it says that or his uncle or his cousin, so it's talking about his uncle who is his father's brother, who they share a father but not share a mother. How do we know that? How do we know it's talking about your father's brother, they share a father but not a mother? Well, it says in the same pasuk that you reveal him from his family. Mishpachas av kuri mishpache, mishpachas em ena kuri mishpache. That your father's family is called mishpache, your mother's family is not called mishpache. So that's how we know it's talking about your father's brother who they share a father. Friends, that was Daf Nun Dal of Masechta Yevamos. All right, we learned some interesting things about what's considered Yibum and what isn't considered Yibum, and we learn out Ha'aroye by Arayas, as well as by Behema and things like that. Also, friends, that was Daf Nun Dal of Masechta Yevamos. I hope you enjoy. Peace out.